Imagine just for a second that you've survived the absolute impossible. You just beat this nightmare creature with a 97% fatality rate. You found a sanctuary, a tiny glimmer of hope in a totally shattered, bleeding world. You're probably thinking, okay, finally I can just catch my breath. But, well, in the world of no respawn, hope is really just another weapon the game uses against you. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're diving headfirst into the completely terrifying events of Chapter 4. We're looking at an absolute masterclass in escalating stakes. We get to watch a simple survival game morph into a completely unwinnable nightmare. The sky is watching, the crimson fog is parting, and something impossibly ancient is about to step right through.
So, just as our survivors, these 5 boys, are trying to process their super narrow escape, a thunderous alarm completely shatters their 5 minutes of peace. The entire sky floods with this blinding red light, and a chilling system prompt pops up right in front of every single survivor. It reads, "World event detected. A king has awakened. Estimated time until arrival, 00959. And man, this is exactly where the lit RPG mechanics deliver pure, unadulterated horror. It's not just some random monster roaring off in the distance, it's a clinical, digitized countdown to the apocalypse. The system itself is literally announcing your execution.
Okay, let's back up a second, because to really grasp the terror of this countdown, we have to talk about where they actually are. This is Haven. It's labeled as a safe zone, a small town literally built inside walls made from thousands of gigantic, unknown ribs. Wild, right? Inside, it looks kind of normal. Wooden houses, market stalls, campfires, but it holds over 2,000 trapped players who have never been able to leave. And here is the truly heartbreaking part. A veteran player named Elias tops the bombshell that he has been trapped in Haven for 34 years. But back on Earth, time has completely stopped. 34 years of suffering here equals exactly 1 single second back home. Their families are just forever frozen at 6:17 p.m., waiting for boys who might never actually come back.
And now there's this ticking clock of doom structuring their panic. We're talking about less than 10 minutes. At exactly 9:59, the alarm blares. By 9:31, the town is already in this frantic state of fortification. Then at 08:48, an old woman strikes a massive bronze bell, which ignites these glowing defensive runes all across those giant bone walls. And finally, by 05:52, the supposedly impenetrable barrier protecting the city actually begins to crack. This countdown is just floating above Haven like an open blood-red wound in the sky. It is relentless. It's an approaching dread that nobody can pause and nobody can negotiate with.
You know what makes this so incredibly unsettling? It's how the veteran survivors react. There's no mass hysteria. There's no blind screaming in the streets. Instead, Haven turns into a fortress in this state of completely silent, practiced panic. Wooden market stalls are instantly overturned into barricades. Archers scramble up the watchtowers. Children are rushed underground through hidden trapdoors. The air literally fills with a sharp, metallic smell of burning iron and rain. It is this coordinated, completely silent desperation that is honestly so much scarier than screaming. Everyone knows exactly what to do because, well, they've clearly done this before. But it leaves you with this terrifying question. Have they ever actually beaten what's coming?
Right in the middle of this practiced panic stands Elias. The new players are obviously freaking out, asking him why this is happening inside a literal safe zone. Elias just gives this bitter smile, slowly draws his sword, which by the way is covered in these glowing cracks, and delivers this absolute gut punch of a line. The game just changed the rules. That's it. The grace period is over. Whatever tiny illusion of safety Haven provided has been violently ripped away by the system itself.
So, what exactly could trigger a game system to break its own rules? Well, inside Haven's command hall, there's a worn map that holds the answer. It shows all the regions beyond the walls, and they all carry these terrifying symbols: a giant eye, a skull, a broken crown. When Kabir asks if this world belongs to monsters, Elias corrects him. He says no, the monsters belong to the kings, the 7 kings. They are the absolute rulers of this dead world, the apex of this whole nightmare ecosystem. And one of them just showed up.
But before they even see it, they hear it. Far, far beyond the walls of Haven, a colossal horn echoes across the dead world. It's just one note, but it is deep enough to literally shake the heavens. It is so profoundly, physically overpowering that every single survivor in Haven just drops to their knees. And they don't do this because they decided to be scared. They do it out of pure, biological instinct. Whatever blew that horn, it commands the very fabric of the world itself.
And then, the crimson fog parts. The first king steps through. This is the Hollow Monarch. And honestly, the scale of this entity is almost impossible to wrap your head around. It is impossibly colossal, causing actual literal earthquakes with every single deliberate footstep. Boom, boom, boom. Entire hills are getting flattened beneath its feet. It looks like a decaying giant wrapped in chains that are thicker than skyscrapers. It has a rusted crown fused directly into its actual skull. There are just endless streams of black blood pouring from its empty eye sockets, and it's dragging a sword so massively heavy that it is carving literal valleys into the earth behind it. Now, what's really wild about this is how the lit RPG system handles the encounter. The system window pops up, but it doesn't give them a strategy or a weakness. It scans the Hollow Monarch, totally fails to calculate its level, just leaving a terrifying question mark, and it classifies the threat as absolute. And under recommendation, the game gives one simple clinical instruction: run. Just think about the mechanical horror of that for a second. A game system which is explicitly designed to give you quests and winnable objectives is breaking its own conventions to tell the players, hey, this is an unwinnable scenario, you are going to die.
From kilometers away, the Hollow Monarch stops dead in its tracks. It slowly lifts its massive head, and despite the impossible distance, it looks directly at Haven. Those empty eye sockets suddenly flood with red light. And then, a single word echoes across the entire continent: found. But here's the thing. They don't hear this sound with their ears. It echoes directly inside every living mind. The pure psychic weight of this one single word is so devastating that people just collapse. In fact, one elderly survivor simply stops breathing entirely. The king literally killed a man with just a word.
So this perfectly sets up the ultimate player's dilemma. The system's recommendation is to run, right? But the grim, inescapable reality is that there is absolutely nowhere left to go. The Hollow Monarch is waiting right outside, and the glowing shield protecting Haven is already fracturing under the sheer, suffocating pressure of its presence. They are completely 100% boxed in.
As that terrifying countdown drops below 6 minutes, and the barrier flickers, Elias makes this incredibly quiet, devastating choice. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out 5 worn metal tags. Each one has the symbol of Haven on it. He hands one to each of the boys and he tells them, if you die, at least you'll die as citizens. It is such a profound and tragic gesture. He's officially welcoming them into a community that is literally minutes away from being erased from existence.
And Kabir's response to this is just absolutely gut-wrenching. He just stares at this little metal tag and says, I don't want citizenship, I want to go home. It's such a powerful reminder, because beneath all the lit RPG mechanics, beneath the colossal monsters and the glowing swords, these are literally just terrified kids who were playing video games in their living room a few hours ago. Elias just looks up at the frozen crimson moon and says, so did we all.
And then, time's up. The countdown hits 0. The breach happens in a matter of seconds, and it is frantic. A deafening explosion totally shatters the air. That glowing shield that protected the city for decades, it fractures completely. A hole opens up in the pitch-black sky above them, but it isn't the giant Hollow Monarch that steps through. Instead, something small, fast, and completely silent slips through the gap and lands softly on the city wall.
Because the true nightmare isn't necessarily the giant colossus outside. It's what just breached the wall. Meet the messenger. It's a brilliant juxtaposition. You have this colossal earthquake-causing king outside, but the horror inside is intimate, surgical, and just deeply, deeply unsettling. It's a creature with pale skin stretched tight over these unnaturally long limbs. Its face has absolutely no eyes, but when it smiles, its mouth opens up to reveal hundreds of tiny, wriggling human hands instead of teeth, all reaching out and waving happily. Yeah, absolute nightmare fuel. And this encounter totally shatters any sense of power scaling in this world. The system scans this horrifying hand-mouthed creature and it identifies it as an elite enemy. But its level? It's only 18. Level 18. It is literally nothing but a scout, just an errand boy for the Monarch, which really forces you to stop and think, if this horrifying, unstoppable creature is just a level 18 messenger, how unimaginably powerful is the actual king waiting right outside that barrier?
The messenger tilts its head, opens that horrific mouthful of hands, and it speaks. But it doesn't use its own voice. It perfectly mimics the exact corrupted tone of the developer, the one who originally dragged them into this nightmare to begin with, and it just whispers, "The tutorial is over." That right there is the exact moment the very last shred of the grace period officially dies.
The creature vanishes in the blink of an eye. Literally a heartbeat later, A veteran soldier standing right next to Arjun violently explodes into a shower of blood. There's no warning, no chance to block or react. The king's messenger has officially begun its surgical hunt inside the walls, just tearing these veteran survivors apart from the inside, all while the absolute, world-ending terror of the Hollow Monarch just waits patiently outside.
Which leaves us with this final, genuinely staggering thought to wrap up today's explainer. Earlier on, the developer mentioned that the very first monster they faced, the Grief Collector, which was literally just a tutorial enemy, had an estimated new player survival rate of a mere 3%. So as Haven falls to pieces and the first king arrives, if the tutorial had a 3% survival rate, what on earth are the odds of surviving the kings? Thank you so much for walking through this descent into madness with me, and we'll see you next time as we explore exactly what happens when there is truly nowhere left to run.